last year.
And then
The spring,
they swarm it off.
had a very healthy hive.
I couldn't do anything until July, and I had problems. I finally got out there and did a mite check. One had 23 mites, or 300.
Right?
And they were sick, and I ended up losing 6 of my 18 hives.
He was going to get him to be, I can't remember the name.
Peroxane?
It's a piece of cardboard that goes like this.
Peroxane.
Yeah.
I've been making salicylic acid sponges recently, and they're really easy.
Well, judging by the clock on the computer here, it's about that time, so welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Just a couple of things, I don't know if you're aware, but Arkansas Beekeepers Association is it September 26th and 7th? They're having their meeting.
Yeah.
Ozark Center, right, Mountain View. Gladys and I are going. And then in January 8th through the 10th, I believe, is the North American Honeybee Expo in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Expo Center. That's a lot of fun too. There's lots of people go there. I went one year. We didn't go last year. I think Ryan, you went both years, right?
Yep.
It's only this third year that they've had it. They split from a different group. But there's a lot of good information. If you Google them, you have everything you need to know about registering and all that kind of stuff. I got a couple of guests tonight. I just want to kind of ask them to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Tom. Would you kind of introduce yourself and just tell us what you do real briefly?
Yeah, Tom Rohr, and I ran into Brian and since met Gladys. We have a community garden over in Rogers. It's over by the old hospital. It's about an acre, and we've had bees kind of off and on, but we don't really know that much about bees, and we would just rather garden, but when we've had them, it's really been good. So anyway, so we have a beehive as of this week, and we're really excited, and it's been a good year for gardening, and I've always been kind of interested in wanting to come to a meeting like this, so I appreciate you all let me attend.
All my hives are named after the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I also have Coast Guard, and one I put on theirs is the Space Force.
Oh, cool.
It's my purple hive. And then we have also Matthew.
My name's Matthew Singer. I'm the Highest for Heroes state leader for Arkansas, and we help veterans and first responders in beekeeping and give a connection, purpose, and healthy relationships. It's anybody that's been beekeeping, been in the bees, you know how amazing beekeeping is. You want me to go ahead and do my little presentation, just chat? It's only like 5-10 minutes. Okay. And so Highest for Heroes is a national nonprofit service organization focusing on sustainability, conservation, and providing healthy transition from service through our national network of beekeepers. We provide connection, purpose, healthy relationships through access, resources, and funding for service members, veterans, first responders, and their families. And, we don't have a real, you don't gotta send your DD 214 or anything. It's real easy. He just sat here and signed up just a minute ago. So it's real easy. We need mentors and we're the largest beekeeping club in the country already. It was founded in 2018 by Steve Jimenez, a Marine veteran, and he's down in Houston, Texas, and that's where the headquarters is down there. And we go around all the big clubs and everything, and like Nabi Cayman Reynolds is really into helping us out. He's really into helping the children out. They have a next gen program. I hope to get my daughter into the next gen program. And it seems like they got plenty of funds. Like you apply, you get in. The kids do a video submission. They got a lot of funds coming in, and they're doing what they can to make sure to just get everybody in there. You know, they really want to center on the kids really good. And on the access, we're a national network of beekeepers. We have world-class education. We have, on our resources, we have list of all the good accredited master beekeeping programs and veteran resource organizations and all the state clubs. And you can go into your state club and then you can find your local organization. If any of you seen that on our Arkansas Beekeepers Association page, it's just, we have all of them and it's really easily accessible. And we try to do peer-to-peer mentorship, but there's just not enough mentors out there. And you know, if you've mentored somebody, it's really not that hard. You can't really beekeep for somebody. You've got to get knowledge. You've got to have that personal drive to really want to learn. And you know, there is a lot of access to resources on here, and it just helps, you know, giving somebody a little bit of affirmation and clearing their mind when something gets a little confusing is about all you have to do as a mentor. But if they're out there really pushing and doing the studying, and there's just so much great YouTube videos, they've got to be doing that. Just in general, mentoring people. Because if you love beekeeping, you want to spread that love, you want to spread that passion. This isn't something that everybody gets into. You gotta have a passion for the honeybee, and you gotta kind of enjoy a little bit of pain. Like me out there, like, it was 93 degrees today. I was helping my buddy pull honey, and well, it's not nice in a bee suit. And yeah, so the master beekeeping programs, and you know, there's veteran service organizations, local and national beekeeping organizations. Like, they sent me I went to Dallas last month and I got to do a video shoot with Blake Shook and for the National Honey Board. And this guy out of Boulder, Colorado came and did the video and did an interview with us, and we got to talk our testimonies. It's gonna be super powerful when it comes out. And Steve Jimenez and me and the Indiana State leader were there. Ron Ray is his name, and we're all right there around 40, 41, 42, and we all went to war at the same time. And our testimonies and the connections that we're making in beekeeping are all the same. The program, the design that God gave us of the honeybee, of a community. Like, a lot of the old beekeepers, they do everything on their own, but that's not how the honeybee does it. Like, we're beekeepers, we've got to design right in front of us. It's a community effort, and it really works. Yes? Oh, you were just distracted. I wasn't, it was just sighing. Almost raised your hand out of the corner of my eye. And we have the BU scholarship that pays for all education for veterans and first responders. And they got a lot of funds coming in. You get some education and you present the certificate and they send you a check for your education. And you know, he has Dr. John Zawislok up here, and he's here in Northwest Arkansas. We use, you know, Arkansas doesn't get picked for anything, and I was talking to Steve Jimenez a couple months ago about the program, the 17-part beginning beekeeping series that he made, and he's like, I know, John, we don't use that, and we didn't have a base education system for Highest for Heroes. So Arkansas is #1 in the state with Highest for Heroes on education, because he did an amazing job on that, and the ability to just sit there and watch things over and over. Like, you sit there and watch those videos all winter, like, you will be ready for beekeeping in the spring. It's just, what he has on there is great, easily understand. He's just a great guy.
And I have a paper here that I put some QR codes. One of them is to Dr. John's stuff, so if you ever want to see that stuff, take this with you, and you can, you'll have a direct link to his stuff.
And then we have the Be More Scholarship, and that's $1,000 grant for second year and beyond beekeepers. Me and Ray Brown got it in Arkansas earlier in the year, and she runs Arkansas Freedom Fund. And Arkansas Freedom Fund's really great for veterans. They do a lot of events and a lot of hunting and fishing and keeping veterans together and combating the suicide epidemic really well. Getting people off the couch, getting people to, we get to hide a lot. It's real easy to hide. We get out of the military and we forget how much of a community we were in the military. It was just really easy when we were made to do it. And we get out and it's just like, I did funeral detail when I was in AIT and training, and it was all 55 and 60-year-old veterans having heart attacks. They'd get out of the military. Within 5-10 years, they didn't know what to do, and they'd have a heart attack and die. And it was 90% of the funeral details I did. And that's where the purpose comes in. It just, you gotta have a purpose. And beekeeping just does it above and beyond. And I think that's really about it.
All right, thank you. You're gonna be able to hang around at the end if anybody wants to talk to you?
Yeah, definitely.
You'll be here if you want to talk to him.
You're-
Thank you.
And I got my cards and the connect cards up here.
Okay, so tonight on the schedule, let's talk about the beekeeping calendar. This is one for Arkansas from Dr. John. And then talk about pest a little bit. And then I believe next month, Ryan is going to talk about honey.
Yep.
Right? So that's what we got going. All right, so in July, as we know, the weather gets hotter, drier. Nectar flow tends to stop. I don't know if you noticed any egg queen slowing down on egg production or not. I noticed that in one of my hives. It's slowed down quite a bit. Also, you might see some beard. This is one of my, I don't know if you can see that, but this is one of my hives, and this is all the bees on the outside. It's my night camera that's on it, and that's all the bees hanging out at night. The hive that I put on Tom's, in the community garden, they had a bit of hive. Those are the only two out of the 4 or 5 that actually bearded, and the rest seem to be doing fine. Okay, so what should we be doing as beekeepers according to Dr. John? Regularly checking hives for health and activity, right? Monitor for pests. We're going to talk about pests a little bit more. Ensure they have adequate room for honey stores. And if we are taking honey, make sure that we leave enough so the bees have them. And then ensure that hives have sufficient ventilation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Abbey May hives or not, but they have a built-in screen bottom board, and then they also have each of the bodies have vents on them that you can open, and the top is also ventilated. So I was surprised to see that many bearding, because all of them are the same, and they have just that particular one. Okay, August coming up, we got growth rate slowing, nectar flow drying up. Bees will still be foraging for water. Could have some dirt going on, right? Little chance of swarming during this period. And then again, we want to make sure our bees have access to clean water. Looking out for robbing becomes a big thing. One of the nice parts, again, about the Abbey May is the front. You can control how wide or how tight you want it. Bees may tend to be cranky more, prone to stinging during times of dearth. And then varroa mite levels tend to reach peak numbers starting in August, and again, we'll look at that a little bit more. And then for September, we know that we're gonna have cooler weather. We might have some fall nectar flow. Drones will start to be evicted from the hives. If you've ever seen that, that's a really neat thing. I used to have my video of the ones dragging them out of mine, and I can't find it. I know I have it somewhere, so I'm still looking. And of course, egg production will be reduced. What we should be doing is, of course, any last minute harvesting, making sure the colonies have enough honey on them. Medicate for pests if needed. And clean and safely store empty supers away from rodents and wax moths. And we'll talk about that when we look at pests. All right. So again, I do have some QR codes here. One of the things is directly to the U of A site with Dr. John, and the entire calendar is there, as well as the free educational videos that are there. I went through those a while back, and they're really quite good. Highly recommend it if you have time. Okay, so let's get into our pests. So common pests that we have to deal with: small hive beetle, wax moths, varroa mites. Of course, we have various diseases such as American foul brood, European foul brood, chalk brood, nosema. This is the IPM model, Integrated Pest Management. You've probably seen that. Right at the bottom, we're looking at identifying and understanding pests. And as we slowly move up, as we deal with pests, the very top is chemical treatments, the little tip of the pyramid. And between that, we have biological, physical, mechanical, and cultural controls and sanitation. These are some of the things that apply cultural controls, include practices to reduce stress, placing hives in suitable environments, decisions to split or requeen. Physical, mechanical improvements, hive equipment to prevent or exclude pests, actively trapping pests. Drone trapping, if you use the drone frames, kind of track drones, help to deal with varroa mite. Keeping hives in good physical repair to prevent ingress of beetles, wax moths, robber bees. Okay, biological gets into some genetic stock that can resist mites. I do have one of my hives, the marine hive, has mite-resistant queen. She's been laying. That hive has been very slow building up. I was hoping they were going to build up a little bit more. It's the only hive I haven't checked yet for mites. All the other ones I've gone through at least once for mite counts. I haven't done that yet. Still going to do that one. But also there might be some other biological things we can do. Goal is to reduce use of pesticides. So that's why chemical control's at the top, and it's that very small pyramid. We're trying to do other things before we get to that point. Okay, so small hive beetles. If you're familiar with small hive beetles, you know they go through different stages. Temperature can impact their rates of reproduction. It can be short, 23 days. It can be long, 39 days, depending on temperatures. Tend to see infestations during late summer months into the fall. Right, that's kind of why we're talking about them now. Presence of pollen, brood, and honey is necessary for successful mating and reproduction for the small hive beetles. Here, Dr. John and Dr. Ellis, I got this from them. They say that the adult female mated with one male can lay an average of 165 eggs per day at room temperature. And then when temperatures are higher, they can increase how many eggs they lay. So once they become established in your apiary, there's no single best method for managing them. The most important thing is to keep the adult members at sufficiently low levels, if at all possible, right, to prevent the bees from becoming overwhelmed. So this is on, Dr. John has an article, one of the many articles that he's written. One is on managing small hive beetles. Usually if you Google managing small hive beetles, almost always his particular article is going to pop up somewhere in your search. So one thing to recommend is locating hives in full sun, as beetles prefer shady, damp environments. Me personally, I've tested that as limited as I could. I have not seen any difference between my hives in full sun versus hives that weren't in full sun. That's just me personally in Lowell, where I live, where my hives are. I haven't seen a difference. Screen bottom boards can help reduce the pupation by allowing debris to fall out of the hives. If you're familiar, as I said, the Yappy May has screen bottom boards already, and they also have a little thing that slides in their little container to collect things. I always go through that and look for what's fallen off through the hives to see kind of. I often find small hive beetles in there and some other things as well.
So do you suggest leaving the tray in with the diatomaceous earth?
That's what I do. In fact, that's what I went in today, actually right before this meeting, and I was putting in some more diatomaceous earth, changing out. Because after a while, the moisture makes it kind of clumpy and it doesn't work, so you really got to kind of stay on top of it. Trapping beetles, one method. I think last month we gave away some of these between me with this kind, and I believe Phyllis, you had this other kind. These have never worked for me. Anytime I've had these in the hive, my bees always will propolis all of the openings. So for me, they just have never worked out. I know some people swear by them, say they're the greatest thing since perforated toilet paper. Also, you put oil in there to help kill the beetles when they fall in there. They have just never worked for me whatsoever. So I don't use these anymore. I tend to use, this is what I use right now, and these are actually from my apiary. You can see these, I know you can't see them clearly where you are, but all these little dots are hive beetles that have been caught up in the sheets. That little dot right there, all of these are from the various hives. Beginning of the year, I left one hive, I didn't put any of these in. All the other hives I put them in, and when I went to check on them, the one that didn't have any had hive beetles everywhere. The ones that had this in them, the hive beetles were trapped in there or they were hiding in the bottom. This is what the sheet that I use looks like. It's called Beetle Be Gone.
They're also, I think, a specific brand of Scott shop towels or something.
There's some other.
Swiffer dust mop
Yeah.
sheets.
This right here, I'm just going to click on this link. This is an example of a specifically made towel.
And where do you put those, on the top?
Top, yeah, lay them on the
So we
top.
all
Top
need
corner.
small hive beetles, and we sell small hive beetle traps. We've got another video on under small hive beetle traps. We also sell these cloths. Now these are pretty cool because what you can do is you can take these cloths and you can put them in between your boxes on your beehive, or you can put them on the top bar of your top box on your beehive, and they're just the right texture that the small hive beetles, when they run over them, they get their legs caught in this cloth and die. So it's a totally natural, organic way to help control the small hive beetle population, and it won't hurt the bees at all.
Now he's from, in this particular video, oops, wrong one, sorry, is from Texas Bee Supply. Again, I'm not endorsing this product, but this is their advertisement for it, getting the beetles out. As Matthew mentioned, some people use unscented Swiffer sheets to accomplish the same thing. First time I've used anything like this, as I said, I have tried the traps and stuff, those didn't work out as well. So far for me this year, these have been very effective. Between that and the beetles falling through to the diatomaceous earth at the bottom, worked very well. Sorry.
I seen something new that they have out recently, like somebody that was playing with some 3D printing stuff. They made a little thing that goes over the frame, and it sits on the frame to where the bees can't get under it, and anywhere that those beetles can go hide and get away from the bees, they will. Like, it's really important not to have gaps or anything in different places, because the beetles will go there. That's where they'll congregate. But then you just like smash this thing down, and all the beetles are hiding under there, and you're able to kill all those beetles that are hiding up under that little thing. Like, you could get like a little, like if you have a crimper or like to fold like sheet metal, you can fold your own little sheet metal thing over a frame or even a couple of frames, and make your own little thing to where it's just raised up just like 1/8 of an inch, so where bees can't get under there, but beetles will be under there. But Swiffer sheets and diatomaceous earth, just, that's some of the best integrated pest management techniques that I've seen.
Chuckle for the day. When I was new to this, I got the fluffy Swiffer things that you dust the shelf with. Don't do that.
Yeah.
My coach did that
Don't
too.
do that.
I'm like, oh no, this isn't the right thing.
That's not the right ones.
No, because I had bees in it and it
Yeah.
was not good.
Now, when I pull those out, there might be one bee stuck somewhere here and there, but for the most part, this one here, they were dragging down the sides, but for the most part, the bees don't really get stuck in them.
They chew on them, but they don't get stuck.
They chew on them, yeah, and that actually
Helps.
supposedly gets the fibers up and actually helps more beetles stick to them and stuff by the bees doing that, so.
If you leave them too long, they'll pull them down
Yeah,
through the frame.
like this
so
one
you
was-
need to not leave them too long.
That one went from the top
7 to
bar, it was
10
right at
days.
the bottom, they were trying to pull it out the entrance. This one right here on the left. That's what they were doing, because that was the hive I left alone the longest.
Do the beetles go up into the supers and stuff
Yes.
too?
They'll go anywhere they can get.
They'll go anywhere they can get.
Does everybody have beetles?
Yes. There's always gonna be a few. Yeah. The weaker the hive, the bigger the population gets.
Anywhere there's pollen, brood, or honey, there's gonna be beetles.
Can we get the nematodes?
Nematodes right here. Yeah, that's the next. It's a biological way, right? They're natural. They're natural enemy of the small hive beetles. Stuff you put in the ground. It's a parasitic worm that will find the larvae, because the larvae pupate in the ground outside the hives, and so it'll find them in there and infect them, and they will generally die in a couple of days. This part I thought was interesting. Once it enters the larvae, they start to reproduce, and eventually the larvae will explode and thousands of nematodes will emerge from it, ready to find the next small. I would love to see that. I don't know, it's just me. I would really love to see that. After I read that, found that, I searched for a video of it, couldn't find it.
Oh,
I was like, man, I really want to see it.
microscopic.
Also have chemical insecticides that can be used, but again, if we think about going up to, trapping and then maybe trying some biological, and avoid some of the insecticides. I do always emphasize whenever I talk about anything, label is important. All labels must be followed closely, right? Don't use unapproved chemicals, especially inside the hive, okay? There is a product you can use for in-hive use for small hive beetles, the bee mite strips, checkmate. They were actually developed for Varroa mites, but over time, Varroa have built resistance to them, so they're not nearly as effective for Varroa, but they have been shown to be effective for small hive beetles. So it is something you can use in the hive itself, but you have to be careful. Notice here that it is very persistent in beeswax, and it mentions here it can disrupt egg production. I certainly haven't got to that point where I've even considered using that, but who knows what's going to happen. On the outside, in the ground, we have approved products that contain permethrin, right? Soil drench. It's similar to DDT. It's highly toxic to honeybees. Again, you sprinkle it on the ground in front, and the idea is that it will kill the larvae migrating out of the soil, out of the hives to pupate in the soil. I've seen on YouTube people recommend this outside the hive, GrubX. You get it just about anywhere. However, I will point out, I know you can't read that, but on the back where it says what it's all approved for, small hive beetles are not on the list. But I've seen many YouTubers, especially some that are well known, that they have quite a following, recommend using this in place of any of the chemicals in front of the hives. I would always caution against it. Then the dreaded wax moths.
Boo.
Definitely don't want to see that in your hive, huh? Okay. As we may or may not know, there's a couple different species, the greater and the less. Both are eat bee wax, particularly unprotected wax pollen, remains of larvae. Both are pests of active hives. However, they generally take advantage of the diseased or declining hives. Right? Strong hives can help really prevent any small wax moth and small hive beetles. Right? Again, they especially like areas that are dark, warm, and poorly ventilated.
Not the garage. Don't keep them in the garage.
Yeah,
Lesson learned.
lessons learned, right? Female wax moth starts laying eggs immediately after mating and continues for 5 days. The numbers that are produced depend on temperature, but can range from 300 to 600 eggs. Well, you can end up with having a mess like them like that with all those eggs in there, right? Female lays eggs in batches. Usually takes 3 or 5 days for the eggs to hatch. Okay, once they hatch, they start burrowing through all the comb, making that mess that we saw in that picture. Worker bees chew the remaining of the fully exposed heads of the bee pupa. In warmer temperatures, it can take only 20 days for the larva to grow. Other conditions, it can take up to 5 months, depending on if it's cooler. Managing wax moths. Healthy, strong hives helps quite a bit. Regularly cleaning hives, removing old comb, eliminating debris. Store honeycomb and other beekeeping equipment in a cool, dry, well-ventilated area. Freezing comb before storage can kill any existing eggs or larvae. Maintaining low temperatures and good ventilation can inhibit their development. I was reading a couple of things on basically some cool storage that they're trying to do. Not quite going to the freezing point, but just storing things cold enough to where it helps keeps them there. Biological, there's a product, B402, preventative treatment that you can actually spray on the frames themselves, the wax itself. Must be used, it says, before any wax moth infestation, so it's probably not good at dealing with infestations, but probably help prevent them. Usually it's used, according to what I've read, it's used after the honey harvest when the frames are stored and kills young wax moth larvae. Single application said to be highly effective right up through the following season. Yes?
Also, pear moth.
That's not next. Yeah, that's not next. This is something, though, you actually spray on the frames themselves. Not authorized for use in Europe, so if you plan on leaving this meeting and going to be a beekeeper in Europe, please do not take B402 with you. Okay, we also have paramoth, right? PDB. Generally, this is crystallized, is put it on paper in between stacks of your hive bodies full of frames. Seal up any cracks and gaps so it will slowly vaporize and it will kill the wax moths. Be sure if you do use it though to thoroughly let everything air out before you start using frames back to the bees. Put this warning here. I've heard, again, some people, when I was at the North American Bee Expo, and I've seen it on YouTube, talk about, well, heck, they're moths. We got mothballs stuffed in closets. These are really good for killing moths, so they must work. Okay, most mothballs have an active ingredient that will kill wax moths. However, it permanently contaminates the wax comb. They're toxic to brood and to humans who might eat the honey from those. So please don't use any of those. Also, there are some mothballs now that are made with the PDB. However, again, keep in mind, they're not manufactured for use in honeybee hives. So please don't use them. If you're going to use paramoth, make sure it's the stuff that is approved to use in your hives. Please don't. And then our favorite public enemy #1, there's the little destructor mite. right? The parasite present in all honeybee colonies throughout the United States and most of the world. The last I read, the only place that doesn't have them is Antarctica. They weren't in somewhere, was it New Zealand or
Australia for a long time.
They weren't there for the longest time, but now they're there. So they're pretty much everywhere. Okay? They harm the bee bodies by feeding on the development of the bees. A big thing with them, though, is the fact that they're vectoring viruses while they feed. If this was a quote from one of Dr. Jamie Ellis's studies or articles that he wrote, said if beekeepers do not manage their colonies to reduce mite levels, there's a 90 to 95% chance the colony will die from the effects of mites and the bee viruses they vector. I don't know how true that is, but that's what he said. And since I'm getting my certifications through him, we can just consider him my daddy for the next few months. Okay, how do you do mite checks? Ryan graciously, this is a common tool that's used to do mite checks. There's different ways to do those. These are just some short videos on the different ways. Again, they're linked there if you want to see them as well. It goes through the steps, but I like the videos myself. That's alcohol. Some people use water with Dawn dish soap.
Never seen that.
I've never done it that way, but there's a lot of things I've never done.
Walmart had some small Tupperwares like this big for like $1.25, and you can just shake the bees in it.
We'll see that one another. There's a key point here. Always make sure whatever frames you're doing, make sure the queen's not on that frame, especially if you're doing an alcohol wash.
Yep.
And there they are. There's the little destructors. Now that honestly looks like one of my hives last year. That's about how one of my hives was last year. Shortly after I found it, they astounded me. They completely left. So I think that Michael was a little bit too much for them, that they said, to heck with it, we're leaving. Next way is a sugar roll. Using the same equipment. Now this is the way I collect my bees that he's showing you on this video. Not quite just doing it running down the frame. Also called the sugar shake. Two full tablespoons of sugar. Powdered sugar, icing sugar. Make sure the queen's not on it. That's what I do. A little tub, shake them into a little tub. The ones that can fly, fly off. The ones that are, and then I use my little measuring cup from there. Now this is an interesting, notice how you put that top on. When you're doing a sugar shake, you don't put you put it this way.
Yep.
And then you put the top. When I was getting my master certification, the advanced level, I didn't do it that way in my demonstration, and I failed my demonstration. I had to reshoot the video and do it this way with the sugar. So even though he's my daddy, sometimes he can be a pain. I failed for a couple of reasons. Okay, now this is the way I'm doing it this year, the CO2 injection, just because I like to try different things. I do it slightly different than what he displays here.
I think the CO2 stuff is neat. That's how you artificially inseminate queens. You talk about the CO2.
Well, that's what I thought while I'm there. You know, I just find it interesting. So yes, I still do it that way. Still gotta put the thing upside down. But where he's holding the lid up, on my lid, I put a little hole in it so I can just stick the nozzle in. Because I'm not coordinated enough to hold that spray back. But it's just a 5 to 6 second shot of gas. Puts them right out. Then you do the roll. All that stuff. They're not dead, they're just sleeping. Usually once I find that once I open it up like that, I guess when they get some more air, they start to wake up. It's not just the CO2, I guess, in there. And usually by the time I do that and dump them down, as soon as I dump it down, I can see probably 60% of them start moving around and walking around and coming back
But
to.
they're mad at you.
So, but on that one there, where did you get the count, I mean, did they do a count of it?
What's that?
Did they do a count of the mites?
Yeah, you do a count at the end, same.
Okay.
Same thing. What I usually do is, once I have it like this, because again, that's in upside down, so it's gonna hold them in. I'll either look in there, and I can usually count them then, but other times I'll just dump it out on a white plate, just like I would have anyway. I
So
was
the
telling,
mites fall into the top of the cup?
yeah, by turning it upside down like that, when I
Okay.
do it, they'll fall right in there. I was telling Ryan, I love gadgets, so I also have a little electronic microscope. So it hooks up to my phone and with Wi-Fi, and so I sometimes just be, oh, and I have my phone, oh, look at that's a mic. Look at that. She, Gladys always complains, because if there's a gadget out there, you can probably convince me to buy it.
So what do you figure your percentage of mites per whatever you're drawing?
This year, I only use a half a cup, I don't do the cup and all that, I do a half a cup. I'm looking to have 2 or less than half a cup. Up to maybe 5 is okay. All mine this time that I checked them in June and into the beginning of this July, I've only had 1 to 2 mites. I had one hive had 2, every other ones just had 1. Now, I will tell you, I'm doing something different this year, okay? So this is a key point that to talk about mites, is keeping them low year-round gives your bees the best chance of survival. Okay. One thing that uses oxalic acid. It's a natural occurring compound used by beekeepers. It's often used when brood larvae is minimal because it does not penetrate the caps. This next stuff is coming from Randy Oliver, if you've ever heard of him in scientific beekeeping. A lot of this stuff is here. But I want to talk just a moment about oxalic acid because, you know, it sounds like it's something nasty if we're putting oxalic acid into our hive. Now, this has nothing to do with bees, okay? This is oxalic acid in food. This is a Kidney Institute because if you get a lot of it over and over, you can develop kidney stones. But I just want to point out something that particularly spinach, When you eat cooked spinach, you get a very, very, very high dose of oxalic acid. 755 milligrams. Raw spinach around 665. Rhubarb, that's what gives it that little twangy taste to it, is the oxalic acid 541. Now if you were to look at all this document, you see even things that they consider very high for somebody with worrying about kidney stones is 24 milligrams, right? So whenever you eat spinach, you're getting 755. If you're afraid of oxalic acid for your bees, probably nothing to really worry. Okay, so Randy Oliver, this is one of the things he recommends doing, is either following with a natural brood break or forcing a brood break. So here, this is his chart. Day 0, he cages the queen. Day 14, he releases the queen. And somewhere between days 20 and 22 is when he does the oxalic acid treatment. Right? All of these brood that were capped are now no longer capped with bees. These aren't quite capped yet. They're not going to be capped until right around here. So you're getting the maximum effectiveness from using the oxalic acid during that time. A couple of methods of doing it. One is the dribble. Just a quick little video on the oxalic acid dribble. Randy Oliver is big on developing these ideas.
Is just show you how simple it is to treat your bees with oxalic acid dribble. So I've got the boxes open.
Just dribbling in between the
Trying to
frames.
do about 5 milliliters per frame.
I'm going to try this year.
I made the sponges last week.
That's all there is to it. So I hope that gives you confidence to try it out yourself. Use oxalic in the nooks because they're not approved to use Formic Pro or Vitaway.
Now, the other thing I would say that I don't like is he doesn't sound like he's wearing a mask. But anyway, I ordered a kit from Better Bee. Again, I'm not endorsing any particular thing. That's the oxalic acid. It has the directions to mix it with how much sugar water. This is the complete kit. So it comes with the safety mask to wear. It comes with the gloves. You have to specify what size gloves you want when you order. And it comes with the tool to use to do the dribbling in between. It's like 20, when I bought it on Better Bee, I believe it was like $25 or something like that. You can also just get the oxalic acid. You don't have to do the whole kit. But it does have on the back here, it has the recommended, you mix it with sugar water, right? And then you dribble it on the bees. That's all there is to a dribble. Randy Oliver did a lot of work with this and a lot of his research on doing the dribbles.
Right.
Yeah.
What? I maybe missed, you probably said, why do you use that?
To kill the mites.
Oh, okay.
Deal with mites.
Okay.
I kind of skipped over this, but this is from Randy Oliver as well. He recommends, and now his calendar here is for California where he based, what he's seen over time, but he recommends 3 treatments per year to get a 90% mite kill. End of the year, maybe an oxalic vapor or a dribble such as that. March, April, May, one of these methods, and then something else in August and September if needed, if your mite levels are high. The oxalic acid here is the extended release. As you mentioned, doing sponges. We're going to look at another product now with the extended release. And we will talk about some of these others as well.
Aren't there temperatures for some of them too?
Oxalic acid does not have any temperature restrictions. That's one of the advantages of it.
But the rest all have restrictions on temperature and whether they're safe
And
to be
whether or
around
not
honey.
you can have supers on them, honey on them.
Yeah.
The extended release, this was from Randy Oliver's page, left on the hives for 40 to 70 days, effective when you already have low mite levels, less effective when you have high levels. That's why in the later ones, he has things other than oxalic acid, because typically in this time frame that we're heading into, this is when you're going to have a lot of mites. So if you haven't kept them down, you might have a lot of mites. And his research and what he was doing said that the extended release was not a good way to deal with those. Okay. All right, so product that I'm going to talk about next is Roxanne. As I talked about it once before.
And I want to show you what it is. So if you don't know what Roxanne is, it is an oxalic acid glycerin strip that is brand new on the market that beekeepers really excited about. So this is, you can use it any time of the year. It's safe when you've got honey boxes on, and it is this right here. So this is a cardboard strip. You get one of these packs, and it's got 60 in there. You only need maybe 3 to 4, or the max is 6, probably 2 for a new, but that 3 to 4 range is the right amount for a typical hive. So it goes right over the frame, just like this. So you kind of fold it, and it goes right over the frame like this. 42 to 46 days, and then you can pull it out. We're really excited about this, and if you want it, we've got it at Foxconn Bee Company. Just order it on the website. It's
You can also get them in packs of 20. It's a slow release oxalic acid. Stay on the hives for 42 to 56 days. This is what I used this year. In fact, middle of last month, I was just taking them off. So I was close to the 56 days. I was in the 45 to 50 days really is when I was taking them off. As I said, I only had one. Most of my counts were one was 2. Well tolerated by the honeybees, no effect on brood. Does not leave detectable residue in wax or honey. Honey does have natural oxalic acid in it, low amounts. Not temperature sensitive, so you can use it at any temperature. Recommended no more than 4 to 6 strips per 10 brood frames. So if you have 2 brood boxes, you might put like 4 on the bottom and 2 on the top. It's recommended 1 strip every 2.5 frames of bees. Next we have thymol, naturally occurring compound, available in various forms, strips, gels, AppyGuard, AppyLife Bar. Thing about that though is there are some temperature restrictions associated with it. 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit is when it's about ideal. Also, like oxalic, it does not penetrate cell cappings, so it'd be something you'd want to do, try to do with either a natural brood break or a forced brood break. Formic acid is another natural product. Formic acid it does actually penetrate the wax cappings. Some people say that it's toxic to bees, especially the queen and young brood if not applied. I've never used it, but I've seen some videos where people really said that it affected their queen quite a bit. So I don't know if they didn't apply it right. Again, as daytime temperatures have to be 50 to 85 degrees. It can be applied during the honey flow, even when supers are on the hive, because it doesn't leave a residue. The way it works is it is a vapor which is toxic to the miners. Okay, then when we get into the chemical, we have amitraz. Disrupts the mite's nervous system, leading to paralysis and death. Commonly administered through strips placed inside the hive, which slow-release active ingredient. Highly effective and widely used. Kills a high percentage. It is a chemical. They say it has low toxicity to bees and does not contaminate honey or wax. However, residues breaking down can be found in beeswax. Cannot be used when the honey supers are on. Must be removed 2 weeks prior to adding any honey supers. Ideal in August to September. Now I do want to point out that specifically, we've probably heard recently, January 25, about commercial beekeepers reporting high losses, 60% of colonies being lost since June of 2024. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture Research Services, they collected a lot of colonies, bees from the dead outs, primarily in California, because it was identified during the almond pollination, right? We had all these bees. So they analyzed parasites, pathogens, and all that. And June 2nd, they updated. They determined that they had, the reason a lot of bees died was high levels of deformed wing virus, A and B. acute bee paralysis in all the sample bees. So then when they dug into it, they determined the viruses were spread by the Varroa destructor mites. And then they screened all of the mites, and they determined that the mites had signs of resistance to amitraz. So even though it's been highly effective over the years, the mites are developing resistance to it. So
They weren't doing their mite washes. They were just treating and they weren't checking to see if their mites were going. And then they're like, right,
Just take that off the list.
Yeah.
1.6 million hives dead. Not all of them.
yeah, there was a lot. So, you know, and again, these are commercial beekeepers, so they get a lot of things going on. So, you know, they're just gonna treat for mites and press on. So, but there has always been the chance of resistance to it, and it does appear that's why if you go way back here to this, even Randy and others have always recommended rotating things out. So don't just say amitraz. If you're gonna use amitraz there, use something else there. If you're gonna use something there, you can rotate them out. Not sticking with, and that's what a lot of course, commercials would do, is just stick with the amitraz or whatever, because it was highly effective. All right. Okay, the last thing I want to do is I want to point out, this is an article from my two daddies now. Jamie is one of them, of course, and Dr. Cameron Jack. They were both at the University of Florida. They worked together. But they did this is an interesting study that they did on the seasonal differences in Varroa populations and treating. This is available on the web for free if you download it. But the thing I wanted to point out, because I heard Cameron talk about this on a video, and I found it very interesting. And this was really the chart that this kind of summarized everything. Now I don't have time to really get into reading the whole article, but one of the things he was talking about is when you're treating. And so these were different times when they did treating. But they found that treating early in the spring had the longest amount of time before they ever actually reached that economic threshold of too many mites. Any other time they treated, it only took a month, like here, it's only 2 months. They're up, here's 2.5 months. Here they're 3 months. But when they treated in the spring, they got the longest amount of time before, and this was just one treatment and then do nothing else. Just check for mites, just continue, check. Not doing repeated treatments or anything, just a one-time treatment to see how long it took for the mites to build up. So I thought that was interesting. Now again, this is strictly in Florida. That's where they're located, so they can take into account different environment and all that. But I found that to be very interesting, and if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, it's an interesting article. I highlighted a lot of things in it myself, but I found that to be very interesting. So it goes back to one of the things I thought that we got from Randy Oliver, and that was this part right here. Keeping them low year round gives your bees the best chance of survival, and by doing it in early spring, does seem to give you an even longer chance doing that one-time treatment. So, and I would recommend this article if you really are into reading. Don't worry about the first few pages goes over how they did it all and all that. But seasonal differences in Varroa destructive population. It's pretty interesting, but that was a pretty good finding, I thought. They did it in 2 different tests, and so it's not just a one-time shot. But that was pretty consistent. What they found was by treating that one time in spring, gave them the longest amount of time before the bees built up above that threshold that would be concerned. I do follow Randy Oliver. People talk about 300, 100 bees. I go by half a cup of bees, 2 mites. I start to think about it. Up to 5 mites, I'm okay. Anything above 5 mites, then I start to work. To me, that's just, I'm simple-minded. That works very simply. Okay, so that's really the end of my presentation, other than answering any questions or anything anyone else wants to discuss. Is anyone planning on going to any of the bee conferences, the association or the
In September.
September? So we'll see you there in September. Matthew's going to be there in September. We'll see Matthew. Are you going to the honeybee?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet? Are you go.
We're going to Nabi,
Yeah.
Yeah, here you go.
and we should get on the next gen program. And they pay for your ticket and reimburse you for majority of your motel as well. And it's just a video submission of showing your kid has a great passion for beekeeping.
All right, well, that's the end of the official meeting, so if you want to stay and discuss and ask
You want to put
questions.
those dates online? I mean, send out
I will, send it out to the officers.
Sorry, are you seeing any difference in that queen, the colony that has a queen that's mite resistant? Are you noticing anything?
I noticed the first thing I noticed, they are extremely calm.
Extremely.
I cannot do anything, I just can't seem to do anything to piss them off. I mean, I dropped the frame. They're just very calm.
But did you purchase that queen?
Yes.
You purchased it, and that was.
Who from?
I purchased a few different ones. I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure exactly which one. I want to say Spring Hill or something like that.
I've heard of him, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Who is that? He might be in High for Heroes. He might be one of our mentors or a state leader.
But, so yeah, they're very calm, and I noticed that they were building up, and now I don't know if it's related to the environment, but they slowed right down on building up. They started to build up really nice, and they just slowed down. There's lots of bees in it, she's in there, because she's marked, so I can see her right away, so she's just not laying for whatever reason. Anything else? Well, thanks everybody for their time. Next month, Ryan's got an excellent presentation on honey.
Yep.
Yeah, we